Before I get into this review, I wanted to tell you to check out the links in the description below so that you can learn more about what is happening in Palestine at the moment. Hi everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So this is Andy Weir's third book. It's a standalone like the rest of his novels, and once again it's a science fiction book. So as always with my reviews, this is going to be spoiler free entirely. I'm going to start off with a very brief synopsis of the book without giving too much away, and then I'll get into my thoughts. So the blurb on the back of the book doesn't really give much away, so I don't really want to give a massive long synopsis of this one. I just want to kind of give you a short one to hook you. Project Hail Mary is about a man called Ryland who doesn't actually know his own name because he wakes up from a coma and he has amnesia. He figures out that he's on a spaceship and he can't remember how he got there. He also discovers that his two crewmates are dead, and they have been for quite a while. So the book follows Ryland as he tries to figure out first of all who he is, also how he ended up there, and what exactly his purpose is in space. So that's all I want to say about the plot because it's a bit of a mystery in the beginning. So let's get into my thoughts on the book. So I understand that a lot of people are quite hesitant to pick up Project Hail Mary because they didn't enjoy Artemis. I think I was one of maybe 20 people who did really like Artemis. Of course, it's not on the level of The Martian, but I did quite like it. So I was quite keen to pick up Project Hail Mary and really quite excited. However, that said, I do think that if you enjoyed The Martian, then you'll really enjoy Project Hail Mary because it's kind of a return to form for Andy Weir, and I'm going to get more into this later on in the review. I do think that there were a lot of similarities to The Martian, which I will talk more about later, but I do think that Project Hail Mary stands alone by itself and it's original enough for me to very much enjoy it. I think if you love The Martian and you've been waiting for Andy Weir to come out with something similar, then Project Hail Mary is for you. Like I said, I don't want to say too much about the plot of The Martian because the mystery element is one of the most enticing things about it. I think it would be great if the reader would experience the mystery along with the main character like I did. I was hooked from the very beginning as soon as Ryland woke up and didn't know who he was, didn't know where he came from, didn't know why he was on the spaceship, because it was just so intriguing to me, and I really enjoy thriller books, so this was kind of a thriller element in the first half of this book with Ryland trying to figure out what was going on and also two of his crewmates dead. I do think that the tone of the mystery kind of shifted about halfway through the book because Ryland was starting to know more and more about what was happening to him, where he had come from and why he was on the ship, and so the focus was more on him trying to carry out his tasks, let's say, instead of him trying to figure out what was going on, because by that point I think he had quite a good idea of what was happening and the mystery was no longer the total focus of the book. So like The Martian, Project Hail Mary incorporates flashbacks into this book, or flashes back to Earth. So the main character's spacebound journey is broken up a little bit, and this doesn't happen every other chapter, it doesn't really alternate, it happens in the middle of chapters as Ryland is remembering things. I really like this technique personally, it's something that I really enjoy in books and it never felt jarring to me, it felt very natural that certain things on Earth were being addressed as Ryland was going through certain things on the spaceship. I was always very keen to return to both perspectives because I wanted to know what was happening all over the place. The mystery elements and excitement throughout were very real to me and I felt very engaged the entire time. Also similarly to The Martian, this book is very sciencey. Ryland talks you through his mathematics and physics processes, so I think if you're not into science then you can just skim over those parts and just trust that Ryland is doing them properly. But personally I really enjoyed reading about the explanations and following along with Ryland as he talked about the sciencey side of things on the spaceship. I do feel like, thanks to complaints about Artemis, Andy Weir was leaning a little too heavily on The Martian, and this is what I meant when I said that I wanted to talk about similarities in this review. I think first of all that Ryland sounded a lot like Mark Watney at times. While I don't think he's quite as adorable as Mark Watney or quite as funny or just lovable, I think because he's so similar to Mark, he doesn't really stand alone by himself as a main character, although I do think that Andy Weir tried to give him certain traits that were very different to Mark Watney. It's just Mark Watney, I need to stop saying his name, is so standout to me, at least, in the science fiction genre. I do think it was quite difficult for Andy Weir to come up with a totally original character, especially knowing that people didn't necessarily love his character in Artemis. Along with that, a lot of the story beats were very similar to The Martian as well. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that, but I think if you put the two books' plots side by side, a lot of the story elements would be very similar, as well as the tone and the pacing, and like I said, the story beats. I personally didn't mind that too much. I don't think it's a carbon copy of The Martian at all, but I do think that some readers might bring it up and they might not get along so well with it, especially if they read the two books close together. And I think it's a shame that Andy Weir felt like he had to lean on The Martian quite so much. Again, I think it might be because of negative feedback with Artemis, because not many people liked that book, especially coming from loving The Martian and then being thrown into a totally different tone or story. I think Andy Weir has now gone back to his roots and is trying that again. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I definitely didn't hate it, but I just wanted to bring it up and I wanted to let you know what to expect if you're going to read this book. I also wanted to bring up the fact that there's a whole section of this book that's dedicated to language and language learning, and I love that. I thought that was fantastic. I know a lot of my friends will really enjoy it as well. Again, because I'm not telling you any proper details about this book, I can't really go into spoilery territory and I can't tell you exactly what I'm talking about, but I loved the focus on language and I love that it took up so much of the book. If you're looking up reviews, then you've probably seen that a lot of people think that the highlight of the book is Rocky, and I have to agree. I love Rocky. Rocky was my favorite character. I would love to see more of Rocky in the future, maybe with a short story. I think that would be really cool. And then as for the ending, which I want to really quickly discuss and not go into too much detail as usual, I enjoyed it a lot. I found it a lot less emotional than The Martian, but to be honest, I think I'm a bit desensitized after the Mark Watney situation. So I didn't sob while reading this one. It didn't evoke as many emotions in me. However, I did feel a lot for the main character and of course for Rocky. So I definitely had a lot of feelings towards the end. So like I said, I think if you like The Martian and weren't sure if you wanted to check out any more of Andy Weir's books, then this one could be the one for you, even though it does contain a lot of the same elements and story beats. Please don't be put off by all the science and maths in this. It was the same in The Martian. You could just skim through those parts and not really focus on understanding it, but I personally quite liked getting into the nitty-gritty of the science and properly understanding, like for example, how exactly Ryland was going to turn that spaceship around. Overall, I gave Project Hail Mary 4 stars, and it might not be one that I reread anytime soon like The Martian was, but it does stand alone on its own very, very well, and I would definitely recommend it to readers of science fiction. Although it's probably not one to start with if you're just getting into sci-fi, I would probably recommend reading a different book for that. So that was my review of Project Hail Mary. Let me know if you've read this book in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of it. If you haven't read it, then tell me if you're planning on reading it. If you were maybe disappointed by Artemis and don't want to check this one out, then let me know. Let me know why. Thank you so much for watching this review, and I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye!